Hello, and welcome to Talking Shop with CTECS. Hello, I am Dr. Ellen Solek, honored to be the leader of the CTECS Technical Education System in Connecticut. I am here today with two leader colleagues in the field that is most interesting to all of us these days, known as SEL, Students' Emotional and Teachers' Emotional Well-Being. With me today are two guests, Maria Regali, teacher at CTECS, and Mr. Tim Baines, administrator at CTECS. Tim and Maria are both the founders of a very unique and very exceptional program called the CARES Council. And you're going to learn a lot more about what that is and who these two very talented individuals are. Tim, Maria, thank you so much for coming on today. We're so happy to have you both.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're honored to be here.
And I am so anxious for people to hear more about this program, so we're going to jump right in. So I recall arriving at CTECS a year ago and somebody saying, hey, we've started this great program known as the CARES Council. Would you like to come to a meeting? And I thought, sure, why not? So I sat down at a meeting having no idea what this group was about, what the foundation of the group really is, other than I knew it was something about social and emotional learning and well-being. So with that, I learned a great deal in our hour session together a year ago, and I'm anxious for our audience to understand what really is the CARES Council, the CARES program. How did you start? What were the beginning seeds for this wonderful idea that's taken such hold of all of us at CTECS? So really, anybody jump in, because I know, Maria, you and I spoke briefly earlier about the history of CARES and how special it is to us as a district.
Well, I can jump in. So the CARES Council kind of came about as a response to coming back from the pandemic. We had been thinking about what our response would be, and students were coming back after being outside of the school for 2 years. Teachers had been outside. The routine had been kind of shaken up a little bit, and we know that our teachers do a really good job at connecting with students. But what we wanted to do was create something that really made that student-to-teacher relationship, that teacher-to-teacher relationship, that student-to-student relationship intentional and really at the front. And so when we sat down and we started to brainstorm, we came up with CARES. And CARES simply means or stands for just creating attitudes and relationships that empower staff and students. And we took off from there, and we started to develop authentically created activities and ideas to support the creation of relationships, healthy, meaningful relationships with the people that we are with and that we share space with every single day.
So Maria, and thank you for that, Tim, because that's exactly what I discovered when I first sat with the group and both of you. What I was thinking at the time was, how are we going to take all of these wonderful ideas and translate them in a meaningful way and a resonating way, right, in each of the schools? CTECS has, as you know, 20 school sites, and that's quite a task, quite an undertaking, and yet you've done it with such amazing grace, if you will. Maria, what were some of your thoughts early on about how we were going to take these wonderful concepts that CARES was coming up with and translate them as part of the lives for our students and staff?
Right, so we knew that our students were coming off of remote learning. And when we think of remote learning, what that was in the beginning was they were truly at home, on their laptops, engaging in their lessons. And we were welcoming them back in school. So first we started with a choice board of all SEL activities. So just making sure that we're connecting with students. We had fun activities where you would get classmates talking with each other, understanding each other's stories. All of that was so important in the starting stages as well as now. So first it started with choice boards, then it led into workbooks, and we made a workbook for teachers and administrators as well as students. And that was just kind of digging deeper, having gratitude journals, just kind of connecting with themselves, having that self-awareness. And then we created a CARES challenge, monthly CARES challenge. And that has really been our game changer, because schools are participating in these SEL activities every single day, and they're fostering these relationships in their classrooms. We're seeing it not only in academics, but in trades. We're seeing it during department meetings. But truly, we wouldn't even be at this point if you, Dr. Solek, didn't see this as a number one priority. This was a number one priority after the pandemic. And SEL and building those authentic relationships came first. And so we were able to build this and create this because you had our support, so thank you.
Well, thank you, and I can assure you that from a district perspective, the entire district leadership team, which numbers really well into the 30s, we were all so excited that we talked about SEL as being a key focus for us, and seconds later, you were on board and you brought us this huge gift. You mentioned the monthly sort of competitions, right, last year, and I'll share a very short but very sweet story with you, and that is I knew that was taking hold and beginning to mean things to particularly building principals, right, when they have monthly meetings, and I began to get questions. Are we going to talk about the CARES Award? Are we going to hear about the CARES Award? And I knew that, coupled with one of our wonderful principals, Lori Labaudier at Emmett O'Brien Tech, I had a quick meeting with her in the building, and as we parted for the day, she gave me a beautiful little stone, right, that had some wonderful uplifting affirmation on it as part of the CARES program for that particular month. And it was very important to her that I received this lovely message. And she had been obviously doing this across the building for the entire month. So already, and this was probably less than halfway through the year last year, already these things had taken hold in small but very powerful ways. So I knew that this was going to take off, which was just so exciting. Tim, you and I we've spoken briefly many times about school climate and school culture at CTECS and what that really means. How do you see the implementation now of CARES 1.0, which was last year, and now CARES 2.0, translating as becoming a solid and significant part of school climate and culture across the district? Because I see it, and I know people in their buildings see it, but how do you both see it as the founders of the program?
Well, when I think about the school culture and climate, one thing that we always we draw ourselves back to is the belief that teachers who are well teach well, and students who are well learn well. That brings us back, and we always remember that, because when you think about school culture and climate, I think everybody deserves to have a place or a school where they go to. They're happy to be there. They feel safe. They feel welcomed. They feel accepted. They feel part of the building, part of the school community. And, part of our CARES work, and if you look at some of the activities that we've done in our monthly calendars, really focused on getting to know each other, getting to know each other's story, giving people the opportunity to share who they are. So along with getting to know somebody and that awareness of who somebody is, what's important to them, what they value, you start to develop a community, right? And a community that cares, a community that works to intentionally connect with each other. And I think we've done a good job at kind of providing activities and modeling that, trying to model that for the buildings. And it's been exciting to watch. We've got a number of schools that are participating in the monthly calendars, like Maria had said. We've got folders where they can share out, so they're sharing what they're doing. A lot of schools are sharing some things that they're doing that aren't on our calendars, but it goes along with kind of the idea of what CARES is, and they've come up with authentically created activities in their buildings to foster relationship building, and it's been exciting to see. I think that's an important part for school climate. You want people to feel welcomed, and you want them to feel like they belong and they're part of the school community.
Absolutely, and it becomes more and more clear as we all really get more involved with the activities and the promotional kinds of things that you have been doing as a council. It becomes more so. Maria, kind of a connected question for you, because Tim just mentioned the word healthy. And I thought, well, how do we measure that? I mean, we all know, obviously, there were significant physical outcomes, both positive and negative, from the COVID-19 virus and other things that we deal with in the physical sense. But how do we begin to measure the level of health, both socially and emotionally, for our students and for our staff across the district? And how does CARES, if CARES gets involved in that at all, what are some of the measures, some of the things that you are able to identify and see as improving as well as we go forward?
So with CARES, like when we talk about CARES 1.0, that first year, we truly tried to infuse it in all the classrooms and all the shops and how we do business, right? And making this a part of relationships are number one. Mm-hmm. And we want to make sure that our students, when they graduate or when they're going through their years in our technical high schools, that they matter, that their stories matter, and that they have a skill set to be the best, right? 21st century skilled workers or 22nd century skilled workers, that we are producing leaders for the future. And how we do that is truly taking time to get to know our students. Kids learn from people they like, right? A child feels connected to the school community and will thrive and blossom, and they will have creativity and innovation if they feel safe and loved and feel, or that they feel valued. So those things are so important to our students, and if we could foster that through curriculum, in the SEL homerooms, during their school day, after their school day, in their communities, with their families, then we start really building something with a strong foundation where our kids, we're producing pretty phenomenal kids, like future leaders. So it's in little moments and steps, but we're getting there for sure.
For sure we are, and you're so right. It is incremental, and it's baby steps, but it's so easy to see tangibly, and our staff is talking about it this year. If I compare last year's beginning of the school year with this year's, in terms of the sense throughout the district that when our students came in the door the first day, they were more settled. They were joyful to be back at school. There wasn't the level of anxiety that COVID and other forces had created as was last year. It was gone. And more of our staff and our building leaders and administrators commented about what a great opening we had this year, great in the sense and healthy in the sense that students and staff came back in a much more settled, focused way this year. And you mentioned the word safe. I think that's a huge component in that everyone came back with an understanding this year of what school was going to feel like, that school is a good place, a safe place, a healthy place, if you will. And CARES has had so much to do with fostering all of that, and really my opportunity to thank you both for all of that work. And I know it's ongoing. I know we're not done yet. So let's talk about, just for a minute, you had mentioned it just a minute ago, Maria, that families and communities have an awful lot to do as well with social and emotional well-being and social and emotional learning, that SEL acronym that we always cite. Yeah. How do you see, through the CARES Council, how do you both see engagement of families and communities as we go forward now? Because my take is that after 2 years of this wonderful program, students and staff are much more aware, I think, and much more engrossed and focused on the need for the CARES program. But maybe our families and communities not as much, because they're not as close, to schools and to what we're doing. So some thoughts, and I'm sure you have some, about where we're headed with families and communities and that partnership as part of the program.
So if you remember Mr. Rogers, who had that TV show back in the day, right? He said that the two most important people to children are their parents and their teachers. And they're actually the two most important people in the world, because we are the ones that are, helping to foster the next generation, right? So with CARES 2.0, we talked about reaching out to families and communities and making them our focus, that we are going to help parents to reach out and have more meaningful conversations with their students at the dinner table.
Yeah, we talked also about, it's about that awareness of what CARES is for the district, but also because it's a priority for us and for our district right now, it's a priority for our district community. So CARES 2.0, the thought is to now start to move that out into our families and community, to bring them on board and be part of this as well. CARES 1.0 was really, we were focused on staff and students. And now it's time 2.0 to start looking at the larger community that we're also part of. And, we even talked about, I know you use the word family a lot. And so I really like when we use that word family. And so we even talked about looking at the family engagement, looking at that community piece as reaching out to our CTEC families, like our teachers' families, and making them be part of the CARES piece, so that not only are they doing it in the classroom and doing it in our buildings, but they're now bringing it out into their own families, and then their families are also coming together with our schools and our school communities. And we thought that that'd be a great approach, to help kind of launch 2.0 into into the future.
For the October challenge, we have this CARE-CROW challenge. So CARE-CROW. And what we're doing for the month of October to kind of prep for the Halloween season, et cetera, is we're encouraging schools to do a display of CARE-CROWs, like a caring scarecrow, pumpkins, and have the community involvement, right, where you're really displaying how you're caring for your students, and you're doing a fall display in that sense. So something little that can bring everyone together, and you can show your pride. So I'm sure Lori Laboudier, as you were mentioning before, will be all over that.
I'm sure.
She is, a rock star with these challenges. So.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you on that one and second that. I think you both highlighted two really key points. And Tim, you mentioned family. We talk an awful lot at CTECS about, in very meaningful ways, about how interconnected we really are. We meaning, as you said, staff members and students across the state. As you know, our schools run the gamut from Danbury all the way over to Groton, Connecticut, and everywhere in between. And at the same time, we have graduates from our trades that are either directly or indirectly related to our students and our teaching staff. And so we're one big interconnected, single mission, single focused family. And we are CTECS as a family. Sometimes that term is overused, but in our case, it is absolutely the term that fits us as an agency and as a system. And because of that, you're absolutely right. We can tap into those connections probably much more easily in ways than some of our public school district colleagues who don't necessarily have those interconnected webs that we do, both in relationships and in the trades and the commonalities across the board. And so what are some of the ways that you mentioned wonderfully, like fun things, the Carrying Crows for October? What are some of the ways that could carry through then to our quote unquote CTECS family, both in schools and out of schools and across the state? How do you see that evolving over time? And I know this is an idea that's just beginning to bud, so not meaning to put you on the spot, what are some of the free thinking ideas that you had come up with around that?
Well, when we first started brainstorming about the family and community piece, we talked about ways to bring families into the building. And so we talked about, is there ways in the future that we can open up buildings especially around the Halloween season, right? To have families come in for haunted hallways or trick-or-treating, or to enjoy our CARE-Crows that are, posted outside of our buildings. And again, we're highlighting everything that's good about CTECS. Everything is good about, what we do as a CTECS family. We discussed having a presence. I mean, we talked about in a perfect world, big vision. I think about St. Patty's Day Parade in Hartford, like having a presence in that parade, so that our families in the area can take pride in seeing that we're there and we have a presence. But it's also, it also serves as a reminder to our community, who maybe aspires to be part of our CTECS family or is thinking about being part of our CTECS family. We're there, and it's inspiring. We talked about, we have the yard goats right in Hartford, thinking about ways that we could have, CTECS family night at the yard goats. I mean, something that just brings people together. Hartford's got a lot to offer, and Connecticut being a small state, I think that's something that we can certainly capitalize on. And I think it's just looking at it from that lens. I think that we could be very successful in creating that family and that community outreach, and making sure that, you're right, even our families and our school community at Abbott Tech over in Danbury is going to feel connected to the family and school community here at Cheney, and what's going to hold everybody together, and what's going to be kind of that force that we can all, the anchor would be that CTECS. Like, we're all part of the technical high school system. And so, those have just been our initial kind of thoughts as we've kind of ventured off into October and CARES 2.0.
And in little ways, too. Like, think about parents. Your child comes home, and you say, how was your school day? And your child says, good, right? And that's kind of all you get. So maybe, with this CARES work and with doing these activities, that there's more depth, right? It's not just surface level type of questions. Like, perhaps, we have so many strategies, we have a 180-day choice board of just questions you can ask to dig a little deeper. Like, your high, low, funny. Tell me something that's high, good in your life, low, maybe something that's not so great, and you're funny, like something funny that happened today. Or we talked about, like, rosebud thorn, something positive, something that's budding or blooming. So just trying to dig a little deeper into the versus the how are you questions with our families and our communities and our staff, right? Just getting those bonds together. And one of our challenge with the staffs was share your high school picture. And the staff was, staffs are all in the CTECS for sharing out their high school pictures. And it was just funny, like, just to kind of see them,
It humanizes everything. Like, you start to realize that, that's not just my teacher. They were in high school too.
Right. And the students love it, especially with the superlatives. What was your class superlative? So it's just having fun, bringing back the fun, right?
Yeah, and getting to know everybody's story, bringing back the fun. We talk about that. Bring back the happy, drive the fun. Yep. We also talk with the CARES 2.0 is that sharing out with our families too, being transparent. The stuff that we're giving our teachers and our students, that we're trying to model, we can also share that with our families. Like Maria says, a child comes home from school, and we've got 180 ways to strike a conversation. I have a teenager at home, so I know that it's not always easy to strike up a conversation and get somebody to talk, especially when they're 13. But we have simple things, the 3 C's, right? Tell us something you care about. Tell us something that you crave, right? And so those are simple, easy ways to just get a kid to start talking.
Yeah.
And I'm excited at it, and I think it's going to be a success.
Oh, I think it already is a success. And I'm just so thrilled to hear not only what's been happening, but to get a sort of preview in on, as you said, CARES 2.0, which is just what we're talking about today. I can't wait to have you both back, because I think there's an awful lot more we can really unpack in terms of where our families can take this and all of the wonderful activities that you've been brainstorming around to bring us together, as you said, as communities, because we have such potential. Tim, Maria, thank you so much for today. You've planted some amazing seeds, and I have a feeling our audience is really going to be interested in following up with both of you on where this is going next. Thank you both for bringing your skills, your talents, and your heartfelt desires for our students and staff to care about each other and to care about themselves, because that really is what schools end up being about, are caring communities of teachers and learners and families. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.